The American presidential race has taken on a new turn following comments allegedly made by the commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces. President Donald Trump is reported to have disparaged Americans killed in battle in Europe. The Atlantic magazine broke the story. It said Trump refused to visit an American military cemetery in France because it was, quote, filled with losers. Trump also allegedly referred to Marines who lost their lives as, quote, suckers for getting killed. Parts of the story have been corroborated by other news outlets, including the usually pro-Trump Fox News. But Trump himself strongly denies he ever made the comments.
No, it was a fake story written by a magazine that was probably not going to be around much longer. But it was a totally fake story, and that was confirmed by many people who were actually there. It was a terrible thing that somebody could say the kind of things, and especially to me, because I've done more for the military than almost anybody else.
Alain Coq wanted to deliver one final and long-lasting message from his bed.
Le cieux demain, ma délivrance commence, et croyez-moi, j'en suis heureux. Voilà, je vous dis au revoir. Pour ceux que je ne reverrai pas. Et ainsi va la vie. Au revoir.
The 57-year-old, struggling with an incurable disease, made the decision on Friday to stop eating and drinking, also terminating his treatment, and then film his own death on social media. Right-to-die cases have long been an emotive issue in France. Most polarizing was the case of Vincent Lambert, who was left in a vegetative state after an accident in 2008. He passed away in July last year after doctors removed life support following a long legal battle.
In a tweet from the French Armed Forces, a tribute and a photo of Arnaud Vope, one of two French soldiers killed in Mali by a roadside bomb. In a somber announcement from the Élysée Palace, French President Emmanuel Macron broke the news, saying he felt deep emotion to learn of the deaths, citing a deep respect for their sacrifice. The Élysée withheld the name of the second soldier at the wishes of his family. A third soldier was injured in the blast. Since France's anti-insurgent operation began in the Sahel region in 2013, 45 French troops have been killed. Most recently, a soldier belonging to the same regiment as the two most recent victims died in a gun battle with terrorists in July.
Actor Robert Pattinson has tested positive for COVID-19, news media reported Thursday, halting production of his film The Batman and highlighting the industry's struggles to get back to business. Warner Brothers said in a statement that, quote, a member of the Batman production in Britain had tested positive for the coronavirus but did not give a name. Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and Vanity Fair all cited sources saying the person who tested positive was Pattinson, the film's star. Warner Brothers and Pattinson's representatives did not return calls seeking comment. It was not clear to what extent Pattinson may be exhibiting symptoms.
The plight of the Rohingya Muslims continues to deteriorate, fleeing from the ethnic cleansing in Rakhine to the cramped camps in Cox's Bazar. The arduous journey doesn't seem to end. Now the first batch of Rohingyas from Bangladesh has reached Bhashan Char today. Now Bhashan Char is an island more than 100 kilometers away from Cox's Bazar. A team of 40 Rohingyas, including Rohingyas leaders and family members of the Rohingya member who have already settled in Bhashan Char, will be visiting the settlement. As of now, more than 300 Rohingyas have taken shelter on the island. The scheduled visit was to take place earlier this year, but bad weather and the COVID-19 pandemic stalled the plans. The Rohingya team will inspect the living conditions on the island. If the Rohingyas find the living conditions to be better on the island, it will help convince others from the camps to transfer there.
Residents and farmers of Newcastle in KwaZulu-Natal have taken to the streets to protest rural killings that follows the double murder of Glenn Rafferty and his wife Vida last week. Police Minister Becky Cele has promised that swift action is going to be taken.
We are in Nombandine, where the farming community has taken to the street to protest against the scourge of farm killings. Of course, this following the double murder that happened here last week. And many of them taking to the streets today. We've seen a number of cars and trucks stretching to about 10 kilometers. And all of them saying that it's time, enough is enough, the killings must stop.
The two Balkan rivals don't formally recognize each other, but after 2 days of US-brokered talks, Serbia and Kosovo have taken the first step towards establishing economic ties, still falling short of a political reconciliation.
Speaking about economy, of course, speaking about politics, we haven't resolved all our problems. There are still a lot of differences between us, but this is a huge step forward.
While Serbia is happy to discuss economic ties, Kosovo's sovereignty remains a red line. Kosovo, with its majority Muslim population, declared independence from Belgrade more than 12 years ago. But it's still unable to join international organizations such as the United Nations. And that's largely because of Serbia, which considers the breakaway province its own.
Images of prisoners in El Salvador, stripped to their underwear and kept in crowded prison cells, are once again in the news. On Friday, the Salvadoran government allowed journalists to tour this supermax prison, which houses members of some of the country's most notorious gangs, and has in the past attracted criticism from human rights groups. The prison tour appears to be in response to a recent report accusing the Salvadoran government of negotiating with members of the MS-13 gang to reduce violence in exchange for prison privileges, all in an effort to gain political favor ahead of the upcoming midterm elections. Via Twitter, El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, denied the accusations, pointing to images of the prisoners lined up in rows and adding, "Show me one privilege, just one."
In a remote, peaceful part of Myanmar, a rebel army is providing security and education. A new classroom built by the Karen National Defense Organization is attracting students who have fled fighting in their villages and are now separated from their families. Education gives them hope for the future, but it's a reminder of why they're here and what they've lived through.
In the past, I saw Burmese soldiers kill my uncle and burn our house. I had to run and hide. The whole village was on fire.
This area is controlled by the Karen National Defense Organization, one of many armed groups that have been fighting the Myanmar or Burmese army for decades. They want a new political system that would guarantee greater rights and freedom for their people. The fighting forces thousands from their homes and restricts economic and social development and leaves many children missing out on education.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un went to Hamgyeongnam-do province on Saturday to survey the damage caused last week by Typhoon Maisak. Meeting on site with Workers' Party officials, he dismissed and replaced the party's provincial chairman, apparently for an inadequate response to the storm. According to state media, Typhoon Maisak destroyed over 1,000 homes in the region and flooded a considerable amount of farmland. Kim also sent an open letter to party members in Pyongyang, ordering 12,000 elite members to go to the damaged areas and lead the recovery work. This is the latest in a series of public appearances by Kim recently in relation to flood damage and the pandemic to cultivate the image of a caring leader.
"224 people have been rescued from the raging wildfires in California, but more could still be stranded.
At least a dozen people have suffered serious injuries from the creek fire that's burning just north of Fresno in the Sierra National Forest. Last hour, we spoke with Madura County Sheriff Tyson Pogue about the rescue efforts underway in the Mammoth Pool Reservoir area of the forest.
And situation that only can be described as just hellish conditions out there for those poor people.
There is another area I read about. Is it the Arnold Meadow that was also of concern and people trapped?
So we did have a bunch of people in vehicles nearby Arnold Meadow, and they were able to make it all the way up to where a bridge was being repaired. And we had to actually use fire engines to pull them across the creek of that area.